Welcome, explorers. Today we're going to talk about one of my absolute favorite places to visit. Now, I know I say that a lot, but truly, the ocean is what I love. On our Earth, more than 70%, that means the majority of our Earth is covered in these beautiful, salty oceans, and I think we should explore those today. You ready? Let's do it. When we talk about the ocean, what is the first thing you think of? I'm pondering. First thing I think of is that salty water. The salty water that makes up our oceans, that our fish friends can swim in, our turtles can get down in. Oh, and then I think of the sand that makes up our oceans, the ocean bottom. Let's take a look at that sand. This sand was taken from a beach in Florida. Now that's on the east coast of the United States. Very south. It's a peninsula. The sand that makes up our beaches in Florida, it's almost rocky. It's not as fine and smooth as some other sands. The sand is part of our ocean exploration today. Another part is at the bottom of this Pyrex container. What do you think is in here? It's salt. We're going to take this salt and we're going to add it to water, fresh water. And we're going to create the salt water that our oceans are made of. Let's do it. Now I want you to be an explorer. That means we have to observe. Take a look, and I'm going to turn my Pyrex around so you can see. Take a look as I add this salt in. I'm stirring it. I'm stirring it. What was white? What is happening? Let's take a look. I see some mixing happening. I'm stirring. What is happening to my salt, my sodium, is it's dissolving. When I visit the oceans, I do not take a glass of water out of the ocean and drink it because of the salt. But what I can do is I can take that cup of water and I can observe it from the ocean. Do you think I can see the salt inside of that water? No, because it's dissolved. Let's take a look. Now you saw how much salt that we placed. Take a look. Most of it has dissolved. Now as soon as those air bubbles start to settle, we're going to realize salt water is something that we know the salt is there, but it actually becomes part of the solution that we know is our ocean. Pretty fantastic. Now we can talk about sand and salt water all we want, but my favorite part of the ocean has to be the ocean life that lives in our oceans. When I think of the ocean, I think of, sharks. Do you think of sharks? They're awesome. I also think of fish. Fish that have to survive in that salty water. What about the birds that fly and they land and that they get their fish and what they eat from the oceans? And one of my favorites on the Pacific coast, that's the west coast of the United States. There are sea lions that live there. They're amazing animals, but they have to deal with the salt water. Ooh, and what is my favorite? Turtles! Turtles are awesome! We have turtles that live in fresh water and turtles that live in salt water. We call those sea turtles. All of those animals have something in common. Their bodies have adapted to salt water. Some of those animals must live in salt water. Some of those animals deal with the salt water, that if they take in the salt, that they can excrete it out. And some of those animals have to live near the ocean, so like the bird that has to get the fish. And it has to deal with salt water, and their bodies adjust. Now, is it wise for us to drink salt water? No. I know sometimes I had to go to the dentist and my mouth was hurting and the doctor, he said, take some salt water and swish it around your mouth. It'll help heal. Well, that means what? We're not drinking the salt water, but we are using salt and salt water to help us as humans. That ocean, those animals, phenomenal. But now I have the next part of the ocean we need to explore. In our ocean, there are different levels, different depths. 90% of our animals actually live in a zone called the sunlit zone. Of course, the sun can get through that water, goes to the water, plants can grow there, animals can live there, and they can get what they need to survive. So we have the sunlit zone. Then there's a small zone underneath the sunlit zone called the twilight zone. Twilight, not many things live there because there's not as much sunlight. And then we have the deep darkness. Whew, what nightmares are made of sometimes. The deep darkness of that ocean. No light, so much salt, and lots of pressure. That's called the midnight zone. Let's review. Sunlit, twilight, and midnight. The three major zones of our oceans. Now, when you go even deeper, we can talk about the abyss and the trench. But today, let's do a little demonstration about those three levels, shall we? Now, I have three different fluids here. These three different fluids have different densities. That means their thickness. We're going to start off by placing this liquid that is dark, dark, dark blue. What do you think this is going to represent? That's right, our midnight zone. So let's go ahead. Ooh, and you're going to watch how viscous this is. Okay, we're going to pour it. Oh, that's awesome. Can you see it? How thick it is? This is going to represent the dark, dark midnight zone. That is wicked. That is so cool. Man, I love science. So you can see this is the lower zone of our oceans. Now, we're going to add some green food coloring to this next fluid. We're going to make sure that it turns green because it's going to represent the second zone from the top. Let's give it a little stir. This green is going to represent the twilight zone. Okay, I'll turn it even this way. Okay. We're going to gently, and I mean gently, pour it on top of our midnight. Oh yes, there's a little subtle mixing. Because these different fluids have different densities, they're going to separate into different zones. Awesome. Now, where in our ocean do most of our animals live? Well, we talked about that earlier, but I'm going to remind you. The top layer of our ocean is called the sunlit zone. Take a look. You see that yellow fluid? It's going to represent our top layer. Here we go. We're going to very gently pour it in. Are you with me? 90% of all of the animals in life in our oceans live in this top zone. I love this. Now, the cool thing about the science involved here, kids, we're talking about density. Do you see it? You see that sunlit zone? It looks so awesome. Now, there's some bubbles, but that's just because of the fluid we were using as an oil base. And oil floats on top of water. It's less dense than water. So here we go. Sunlit, twilight, that gorgeous green, and that blue is midnight zone. Beautiful demonstration of our three major zones of our oceans. Boys and girls, as we talk about the oceans, something I want you to think about. When it comes to our oceans, we have salt water. Our oceans, the base of our oceans, are based in sand and rock. Our oceans have several layers. We need to know the difference between those layers. That deep midnight layer, not many fish or animals live there. There is one cool fish, though, called the anglerfish. Ooh, that's cool. Because he actually has a part of his body that actually lights up naturally. That's a cool thing to look up, the anglerfish. He lives in the midnight zone and even to the abyss. Come back up to the twilight zone. Not many plants live there. A few fish can live there. Sharks can swim in the twilight zone. But where do all of our friends live? They live in the sunlit zone. That means a lot of sun. Plants can live there, do their thing. Animals can live there. Boys and girls, I love the ocean. I love the salt and the sand, and I know you do. If I haven't told you, beaches in the ocean rock. Until next time.